got a one of those targeted Facebook ads. I think today it was like DK Metcalf green jersey, and I'm like, do I need another one? I'm like, I kind of do need another one. Like maybe I should order a green one, but I haven't yet. Haven't yet. Anyways, my Seattle Seahawks starting 11 all-time defense. And again, I'm going with a 4-3 model because historically that's what they've played. Starting on defensive end, I am going with Jacob Green, who is before my time. I mean, he played in Seattle from 1980 to 1991. But he's impossible not to include because he has 115 sacks in his career with Seattle. So can not include Jacob Green. And I mean, every all-time Seahawks team has always included him. On the other end, I have, and this one I struggled with for defensive end. I kind of went back and forth between Cliff Averill. I always like Grant Wistrom from those kind of early to mid 2000 Seahawks. He was there when they went to the Super Bowl run in Super Bowl 40. But I had to go a little more current and include Michael Bennett. He was so dominant when he was in Seattle. He was very versatile as well. He could play inside or outside, depending on where they needed him and what they needed him to do. So I had to include him. And just to backtrack a little bit on Jacob Green, fun fact on Jacob Green, his son-in-law is Red Bryant, who also played for the Seattle Seahawks. So just want to quickly include that. D tackle, and this is where I cheated a little bit, kind of like you did with Rod Woodson, where last week on offense we both kind of wanted to include guys that made an impact with our teams. They didn't just play a few years there before they went on somewhere else and made an impact, or kind of ended their careers in Seattle, like Jerry Rice, for example, that I didn't include last week. But John Randall, he came over from Minnesota and spent 3 years in Seattle. But those 3 years in Seattle from the D tackle position, he still had 23.5 sacks. So he was still super contributing. He was very effective, and he is a Hall of Famer, but obviously he's in the Hall of Fame with Minnesota. The other D tackle, this was obviously a no-brainer. Anyone that's I don't have to, it's Cortez Kennedy. I mean, duh. Tez is in the Hall of Fame. Tez is the Defensive Player of the Year from 1992, which Steve, you may not know this, but and some others might not know this as well. The Seahawks went 2-14 in 1992, and Tez still won Defensive Player of the Year.
Ooh.
Like, if that doesn't tell you how dominant Cortez Kennedy was, not only in his career but in that season, I don't know what else does.
It's kind of like the Ravens winning a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer throwing the ball for them.
Hey,
that defense had to be
Seahawks legend Trent Dilfer. Man, I'll never forget when he was in Seattle and like Mike Holmgren just couldn't decide who his starting quarterback was going to be, and he kept flip-flopping between Dilfer and Hasselbeck. That was kind of right around the time that I started watching Seahawks football. Middle linebacker, this one's not going to surprise anybody. I've got Bobby Wagner. It was really hard not to go with Lofa Tatupu because I really love Tatupu. I mean, I named him as one of my 2000s captains, but Bobby Wagner's the best linebacker the Seahawks have probably ever had. Outside linebacker, I'm going KJ Wright, which might be some recency bias there. He had a really good season last year. I'm can't believe the guy's still a free agent and hasn't signed anywhere yet. But I mean, he's been the model of consistency throughout his career in Seattle. The other outside linebacker, and I almost cheated here, actually. I almost said Lofa Tatupu just to include him on this all-time 11. But I went with Leroy Hill, another linebacker from those kind of mid-2000 years when the Seahawks went to Super Bowl 40. It was really hard not to include Bruce Irvin there. But again, Bruce Irvin, I felt like that was cheating a little bit as well, just because Irvin was one of those guys that was probably more of a pass rusher than he was an actual linebacker. Cornerback, this probably isn't going to surprise anybody either. I've got number 25, Richard Sherman. He was a no-brainer. I mean, I've got his picture behind me here. The infamous tip versus the 49ers back in 2013, 2014, whatever year the Seahawks won the Super Bowl 48. I always get it was the 2013 season, but the game actually happened in 2014. So what season did it actually happen? I'm not really sure.
Same thing with the Ravens one too.
Yeah, right. So it's I don't know. Anyways, Sherman was a no-brainer, which actually I saw a thing on Instagram earlier today that Sherman was out hiking some mountain with Jermaine Kearse and Doug Baldwin, which is kind of cool to see that he was out getting some exercise and hanging out with his boys, and everyone had a smile on their face and they were making jokes. So hope Sherm is doing okay and his mentals are all right as well. The other cornerback position, again, I felt like this one was a no-brainer. And he spent 7 years in Seattle. He was a Seahawks draft pick. So again, I don't feel like I'm really cheating here on this one. Sean Springs.
Okay.
Yeah. That is kind of before my time of watching the Seahawks. So I don't I remember Sean Springs with the Redskins, the now Washington football team, but it had to include him. Couldn't really think of anybody else to include. Byron Maxwell was good in Seattle. Brandon Browner was good. There's Marcus Trufant maybe could have been the only other guy that I think maybe would have had that legitimate shot over Sean Springs. Free safety, Earl Thomas.
No brainers.
No brainer. Yeah. There's so many no kidding. Of course you're including that guy. And I really struggled on offense, and you can tell by how quickly I'm going through this list on defense. There wasn't a lot of questions for me on defense. I'm sure a lot of people don't want to include Earl Thomas because of how it ended with him flipping the bird to Pete on the sideline after he broke his leg. But I mean, that's sports, baby. That's emotions get the best of guys, and things happen.
If you said anyone other than Earl Thomas there, I would question you so hard. Who cares whether he flipped the team or whether it was Carroll or the team or management, whatever it was, he was the best free safety there. They were so dominant. I mean, unbelievably dominant.
He got, for a number of years, comparisons to Ed Reed.
Right. And
a lot of people say that Ed Reed is, one of the best, if not the best, safeties to ever play in the NFL. So to get comparisons, and I even see people now being like, bring Earl back. And I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I hate seeing the way things ended for Earl. I'll say that much. And lastly, strong safety. Excuse me. And I don't know if people are going to get mad at me for this one. You might not understand. I feel like most people will probably agree with me on this. It's not Cam Chancellor.
Well, Bam Bam was one of my favorite favorite non-Ravens players was Bam Bam.
Yeah, I had Cam in this spot initially. Before I went back and I looked and saw the guy that should have been included and the guy that I did include, because Cam didn't have a career even close to this guy. And it's Kenny Easley. Kenny Easley, he's in the Hall of Fame. He is a 3-time All-Pro. He's on the Hall of Fame All 1980s team. He also won Defensive Player of the Year back in 1984 for the Seahawks. Everyone says that, Kenny Easley was Cam Chancellor before there was a Cam Chancellor. One of the hardest hitting safeties of all time. He was, a lot of people always kind of said that Cam was like having a linebacker playing the safety position. The size of a linebacker, the hitting ability of a linebacker, but the speed of a safety and the awareness of a safety. Well, apparently that was Kenny Easley as well. So I had to go with Kenny Easley, as much as it pained me not to include Bam Bam, because I love Bam Bam just as much as the next guy. I mean, even you said it, like Cam Chancellor is one of your favorite strong safeties, and you're not even a Seahawks fan. So I wanted to include him because I've seen him play, and I didn't see Kenny Easley play, but I just couldn't exclude him.
Yeah, fair.
I mean, my defense has 2 guys that are Defensive Player of the Years, both with the Seahawks at least. I don't know about, I don't know if John Randall ever won one. I know Sean Springs didn't win one. So yeah, that's
yeah. I feel like you and I went through defense a lot quicker because our teams have been more defensive heavy or defensively focused with strong run games. So some of those spots I feel like I could have picked for you and you could have picked for me just as easily. So again, guys, I know I took quite a bit of flack last week for picking Ray Rice over Jamal Lewis. I'm sure there's going to be something in there that I take flack for, but if you disagree with me, shoot me your 11. Shoot Chris your 11 if you're a Seahawks fan. If you're a Packers fan, shoot us your 11. It'd be fun to go research some Packers stuff, or if you're a Vikings fan or whatever. It would be fun to go and look at some of those and get in those conversations. It was a lot of fun for me.